Hi everybody and welcome. Today we're going to be going over some review questions for Unit 4 to get us ready for that upcoming Unit 4 test. So we're going to go section by section, starting off with 4.1 and ending with 4.5. I'm going to start off like I usually do here with doing one or two of the questions and leaving the remaining questions for you to complete on your own. And again, really important that you take the time to go through those questions because they'll be really similar to the types of questions you're going to see on the assessment. So some good practice now is going to pay off when it's time to actually take that test. So the first thing for 4.1 is asking about, is it a function? Now, when we're looking at graphs, the things that we want to remember here is the vertical line test. And this basically says that each input has one output. It's a really fancy way of saying if you draw a line straight up and straight down, it should only cross the function one time. So straight up and straight down, drawing a whole bunch of lines here. We're seeing each of these only crosses at one point. So again, only crosses here, only crosses here. And side by side to this, if we do the exact same thing for this function, that kind of S shape here, what we're going to see is while some of them only cross at one point, so like this one and this one only cross at one point, we're seeing multiple points of intersection with the other ones. So like this one, even 1, 2, 3 different points. So as long as just one of these lines crosses at more than one point, we say that this one is not a function. It fails VLT, fails the vertical line test. This one is a function, and it passes VLT. So do that same process, get comfortable with doing the vertical line test for the remaining 3, 4, 5, and 6 questions here. But hopefully that visual example for the first two is helpful. Next, on to 4.2, evaluating functions. Two different ways that we can evaluate functions. So the first way is if we're given a function and then it's like g of x, but then they replace the x value with something. We know here that x equals -4. So in this case, what we can do is plug in for that x value. And when we do that, we'll be able to fully solve. We just have to do some PEMDAS here. So doing this step next, we'd get 16. This step here, we'd get -16 and -1. And if you're asking that first 16, why is this positive? Well, two negatives times each other, a negative squared is positive. But here, a positive and a negative do give us a negative. So be careful with those negative signs. Don't let them get you tripped up and you'll be in good shape. Finally, 16 minus 16 is 0. -1 just leaves us with that, -1. So now it's your job to go through and do the same thing for B, C, and D, and get those full final answers. The graph, I like this one. It's a little bit quicker to calculate. They give you an example. The x is 4, the y is 1. So let's check that. The x is 4, the y is 1. So that's the point f of 4 equals 1. And they're just asking you to do that again. So they're saying when the x is 6, what is the y? Well, if we trace that over, we can find that the y is 2. So that's basically what they're asking you to do for the rest of that question. So evaluating functions, sometimes you're calculating, sometimes you're solving, but other times you have to look at a graph and interpret it visually as well. So important to be able to flexibly do both of those things. All right, now on to 4.3. So slope-intercept form is our goal from this section here, and all that means is we need to have y equals mx plus b for each of these things. So we basically need a y equals equation. Now, most of these, as you can see, are not y equals. So that's going to be a little bit challenging for us. So just some algebra solving. We're not solving for a number. We're solving for a format. So anything that's not y, we need to move over. So we're left with -1y, -5x, +12. And again, be careful. That -y, that's a -1 there. So it's not just y, but we need specifically to make sure that we have just +1y. So -1 won't work for us. We got to divide each number by -1. We'll be left with 5x minus 12. So again, let's do the same thing for each of the remaining questions here with the goal of having y equals something times x plus something. So that mx plus b, and we're rearranging it so that, again, we have it solved in that form. Our next skill here, taking a look at solving for slope and solving for the b value or the y-intercept. So we have to remember our slope equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. They are giving us x1 and y1 and x2 and y2. So now it's our job to first, let's get that m value. So 24 minus 3 over 7 minus 0 we'll be left with 21 over 7. If we do that division, we'll get an answer of 3. So now we can take that and ry equals mx plus b. We have an m value, and we can use either of these pairs. We can use this one, or we can use this one and set up our equation. So let's use y is 24 and x is 7. So 24, m is 3, x is 7, plus b. And doing this is very intentional because we're just left with the b value, which means that we can actually solve for that b value. All right, so we have m is 3, b is actually also 3, so our final answer here is y equals 3x plus 3. So again, we solve for both m and for b. Another thing you might have noticed if you were paying careful attention is we're given 0, 3. That's actually the y-intercept. That's where this graph crosses the y-axis, because wherever x equals 0, that's where we hit the y-axis. So you might have been able to see without calculating that b equals 3 as well. So a couple different ways that we can see that. Either way, good skill to know, being able to solve for both m and for b, because we're going to need to do that, again, on the assessment. All right, last skill here, looking at some word problems. And again, with that y equals mx plus b form as our goal. So let's read this first one together. We'll go step by step and see how we do. So the water level is at 34 feet to start, and it's receding, important word. So receding, if you need to look that up, that's totally fine. It just means that it's going down at a rate of ½ foot per day. So they want us to write an equation for this, and basically in y equals mx plus b form. And we're going to change these variables around. So the level, that's going to be our y term. The m term, that's our rate. Well, per day, that's telling us that's a rate, so 0.5 per day. We don't know how many days, so we're going to put a d in there. And we know that we start off at 34 feet. And I almost just made a mistake. Receding means going down, so that means we have to have a negative term. So this is negative 0.5, because it's going down by 0.5 per day. So that's our y equals mx plus b equation. And then now they want to know, when will the water level be 26 feet? So they're giving us an L. So we can take our equation, plug in 26 for L, and then just finish up with some solving. So I'll leave these algebra steps for you, and you're going to have to do the same thing for the next two equations. Let's get a y equals mx plus b form. They might have a different y or m or x or any of those terms, but again, it's your job to put it in that same format and then go through and solve whatever's asked. All right, everybody, so that's some review for us. Again, skills from 4.1 all the way to 4.5. Please make sure that you are practicing doing these final questions, taking a picture and submitting your work for the completed notes for this video. Any questions, as always, feel free to shoot a message, send an email, any of those things. You can book an appointment too. We are here to help and we want to support. All right, see you all in Teams very soon, and thanks for logging.